Senior year, a popular girl obsessed with winning prom queen and living the perfect life has a cheerleading accident that leaves her in a coma for 20 years, as the same as our audible count here. The When she wakes up, she resumes her quest for popularity as though the last 20 years has not happened. Rebel Wilson stars. Senior year. Thoughts?
I loved it. I absolutely love this movie. It brought me back. Yes, it is not as offensive, or I didn't think these movies were offensive at that time, but it brought you back to movies of that era. When she graduated, they made fun of these things. They made fun of, you can't say certain words, you can't do certain things, but they brought it up and they made fun of it in a way that was okay and woke with the times, even though I hate saying woke. But it also worked really well. And Rebel Wilson got to do a Britney Spears video and all these things. It was super cool. And it's it just, to me, worked really well. I thought the storyline worked. Whatever you think, someone wakes up from a coma in 20 years, whatever. It's going to be whatever it is. But it doesn't mean that doesn't work. So for me, it was one of those things where it's just she carried the movie really well. She looked really great. Good for her on, losing weight. I know people were skeptical on that, but it really worked for me. She was someone who was super popular, and it's played by a different person at the beginning. And then she comes back after staying in the coma for 20 years as Rebel Wilson. And I thought it was really cool, that building of coming back of I was cool, and now I have to rebuild myself as cool. And it worked as a teen movie of our era. And I know it sounds weird because I know, as a fifth grade teacher, my students call me old, but we're not really old. I know that sounds weird, and we complain about being old, but being 37 is not old. There's so many people in our world that would love to be 37. And it's one of those things, 37, 38. And it's we're not really old. We're not even middle aged. We're just kind of just there. We just exist. LeBron James is still playing basketball. This is one of those things. And Tom Brady's older than both of us. And so it's one of those things where it's just, you have to look at that kind of life. And that's the way I look at it, where it's just she doesn't know any better. And I thought this movie was so funny. I haven't laughed like that at a movie that was new in a really long time. Janie and I have gone back and watched older movies, Billy Madison, a lot of Sandler stuff that she hasn't saw, and we laughed really hard. This is the first movie I really remember laughing at really hard in several moments, because I thought it was just really well done. And maybe I laughed harder than I should have because we just haven't seen something like this, but I really, really enjoyed this movie.
There were a few moments where I laughed out loud, but this was kind of a miss for me. I was really hoping for more, but I think that this had some fundamental problems. Number one, I think there were pacing issues for me, and this was a fairly long movie for a comedy. I think it was about an hour and 45, but it felt rushed, and that was kind of weird. That it was a little bit longer and it felt rushed. So I think maybe I honestly think they kind of focused a little bit too much on the pre-accident.
I can see that
pre-accident. And then the other thing that I felt was missing was they kind of sped through the area of the movie that it was okay, we're going to get you caught up to speed on everything in the last 20 years. Because I think that would be kind of in a Billy Madison way. I think that's where the humor would have really been found in this story. And I kind of felt based on the trailer, and we did the trailer reaction for it, that was kind of what they were shooting for, but I felt like they left a lot out. And
I can see that. Yeah.
I think that, like I said, there were some moments where I really laughed out loud, but I kind of felt like, like you said, like woke or whatever. And they said, okay, well, you can't say this word. You can't say that word. But I've really felt like at the end of the day, like she just still really wanted to be prom queen. And that kind of made her just like less of a redeemable character because she still has this shallowness to her. And obviously she kind of gets through that towards the end, but I felt like it was just kind of, I don't know. It's just as a whole, like I said, there were some decent moments, but a couple of laugh out loud moments, but I did feel like to a certain extent that this was kind of almost A, pushing an agenda, and B, it was just not, it just didn't work for me the whole way through.
And I can see it. The thing I will say, Brenton, is something I agree with is like maybe it was pushing an agenda, but we at least don't see things like this anymore. Like even mention of certain words. I'm not going to get into what the words are. I mean, it's just like that's, you know, I don't, you know, I just want to do that. But the thing I will say is, I agree what you said in some degree. But the thing I will say is like at least it tried pushing things. And some movies just don't try pushing anything anymore. And there's also this thing to me where it's just like I still really like Rebel Wilson as, and this is something I will just say is like, you know, she got really put down for getting skinny and for at least getting thinner. And she still does the stuff that she does. She still rolls like all those things really matter where she was doing the theatrics of being funny. And it's still funny to me. It's so funny. And it's like, she doesn't have to be, you know, fat. She doesn't have to be thin. She doesn't be anything. It's just like that kind of stuff still works. And I think that's actually to me more important than anything. It's just like Rebel Wilson, I think, who is 42 now, can still be really funny either way you look at that. And whether the movie works one way or the other for you is different. I totally agree. I mean, for me, maybe it was just one of those things where I may have liked it more because I just want to see something where someone tries anything that isn't, you know, saccharine. And I mean, there's not been a good comedy in so long. I just don't even know anymore. Like, and at least just push some limits. It didn't push all limits. I think what happens from a movie like this is hopefully someone watches it and like maybe we can push a little limit a little further and we go back to what it was because yes, okay. The movies we grew up with, Brent, were they perfect? Were they, you know, were they politically correct? No, they weren't.
No, not at all.
No,
not at all.
You know what also they
That's
were?
what made them funny.
Exactly. They were funny. And there's some kind of thing where like we need to pussify the, and I hate to say this word because I don't like it, but people need to pussify and just like agree that some things are funny, even if it offends you. Like, here's the thing, and I'll just say this, okay? And
we did this episode, right?
No, it's like we did the comedy episode, but I'm just gonna go like a little deeper. It's like a lot of my friends made fun of me because like I didn't really know my dad. And it's just like, and I know this gets deep, and I don't give a shit. Like, I actually don't give a shit. But like, that's funny to me. Like, make fun of me for that. And it's like, there's a lot of things you can say about that. And it's like, just get over it. Get over these things that you have that you think are so important because they actually aren't, because we aren't on the earth for that long. Just like enjoy things that are funny. And like, if you want to make fun of things of like, you know, saying certain words. And like I said, I'm not going to say these certain words because like I like having this podcast. I don't want to be canceled, but like just say these certain words because it's not that big of a deal. It's literally not that big of a deal. And it's only that big of a deal to people who are white women that live in Kansas who pretend to care, but then are just like, it's just that this kind of stuff just bugs me so much. And it's like, if you actually care, you'll actually care and you'll donate money to these things. But if you don't actually care, you're just saying stuff. And that's the kind of stuff. And it's like, yes, you may not have enjoyed this movie as much as I did, Brenton, but like at least it was a relief from something that was so saccharine. They tried to do something different.
Yeah, sure. And again, Rebel Wilson lost a lot of great for her. I mean, it's awesome. She's very not that she wasn't attractive before in a certain way, but
right.
I think, she's a good looking lady. But the other thing is, and I find her quite delightful in everything I've ever seen her in. I think she's very funny. Yeah. She's very charming. But to me, this wasn't about all of that per se. And it was just kind of like, there were elements there that could have been polished a little bit more to add a little bit more humor. And I think that the pacing got out of control in certain places where there could have been a moment where we, like, for example, and you can kind of see in the picture behind me here, she's holding a TI-81 whatever Texas Instruments calculator, pretending that it's her cell phone. And I felt like they could have made a better joke about that, or they could have made it better. Yeah. I mean, they hit certain things like, oh my God, there's 9 more Fast and Furious movies and stuff like that. But I felt like that was what the trailer was showing us. And instead of getting this sort of like person out of time version of Billy Madison, we got just another teen prom movie. And that to me was kind of a bummer, because I was looking for the humor of this person who was gone and is now trying to catch up.
And so I will say, I'll piggyback off that, is this movie is supposed to be set in her timeline. And 2003, 2004, 2005 was all these prom movies. Yeah. And I think that was kind of what
she was out at 2002 was when she was
right. And I'm saying, but the movie era of this is like all these prom movies. So I think what made it work for me was the fact that she literally just like, she was living out a movie of that era. And now this just is coming out now. And so it's like, it's a prom of those movies. So it's 2022, but we're looking at a movie that realistically comes out in 2023, 2024, 2025, whatever. That's the way I look at this movie, is that it still can't be offensive, like in a sense, because it's still that kind of era. And if you watch, and I'll make a recommendation about like a movie that came out that time, but it's just like, it was a movie of that era, not our era.
I don't know that anything that you just said made sense to me, but that's fine. I appreciate the fact that they made that they tried to make a comedy movie. The other thing too, hang on. The only other thing was that like, this was a rated R comedy. I mean, there were several F-bombs, but it's not like they used that to their advantage other than to drop F-bombs.
Not right. So I didn't even know it was rated R until we finished.
Till the end. They don't even come till the end, and then there's like 6.
Yeah.
And that's it. They could have done a lot more with, and certain things that she did particularly, I really found to be funny, because they're like things that I would do.
Right.
Like when they're doing the cheerleading scene and she just like walks over and knocks some of the like Gatorade bottles on the ground or whatever. Right. I thought that stuff like that was funny in some of the physical humor, but overall it just didn't work for me.
I mean, I'm sorry, it didn't work. I just want to clarify what I mean. It's like, is that 2003 through 2006 comedy, like teen comedy movies, were all this? And like, it kind of just brought me back to this. Is like, someone wants to be prom queen, they'll do whatever they can, and then there's a redeeming arc behind it. And that's what I really liked about that. And it kind of just brought me back in time. That's probably why I like this movie. It's just, it brought me back in time to something that was better. And it's like, because comedies now are too woke and aren't funny. Comedies aren't funny anymore. And this at least tried to be funny, whether you thought it was funny or not. At least this tried to be funny.
Sure.
Yeah.
So would you give it out of 10?
7.
7?
7.
Straight 7.
Yeah.
It's like a 5.5 for me.
Okay.
That's where I'm at with that. So what's that
so
average out to? 6.75?
25.
6.25. Yeah.
Yeah, 6.25.
Not great with math.